Good afternoon. Welcome to this month's edition of 30 Minutes with LinkSpring, our monthly webinar series. I'm Mark Peacock, Vice President of Marketing at LinkSpring. Thank you to each of you for joining us. In today's webinar, we're going to look at the Java plugin and applet with the Niagara framework. I think many of us over the last several months have heard a lot about the Java plugin and Java. And as you may have heard, Oracle announced that it is discontinuing the Java browser plugin. Many of the browsers and the browser vendors have begun efforts to already do that or announce timelines for their removal. And we'll be sending you some more information here later this week with an update on who's already discontinued the Java plugin and when others are going to actually do that. So today's session is being presented by my colleague Chris Ryan, who many of you know is Director of Engineering here at LinkSpring. He's really going to take a closer look and a little bit deeper dive into the Java plugin, into the applet, and really what it means to you in relationship to with Niagara. As usual, we will be recording the webinar and we will make the deck available in a couple of days to everyone. And in keeping with the theme, 30 minutes with LinkSpring, we are going to keep this at 30 minutes, or possibly today it may be a little bit shorter. If you have any questions, feel free to use the webinar technology to either ask them in the question section or the chat function. And without further ado, let's go ahead and turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Mark. As Mark mentioned, we're going to go into what options are available to us within the Niagara framework to continue using our visualizations in one way or another. So I'm going to keep this relatively short today. We wanted to give you plenty of time to ask questions. So the options that we're presenting today obviously are not the only options available to you, but we wanted to pick about 3 succinct options and present them. One thing I will mention as well is that as part of the deck that Mark makes available at the end, we will also have a PDF that shows, you know, kind of if you're using a JACE 2 or a Jenny 3 or a Jenny 6 or a Jenny 7 or a Jenny 8, what are your options and how best to go along with those. So we'll be presenting that. It was too much information to put onto a slide, and I didn't want to confuse everybody, and I wanted to keep, as I said, as much time available for Q&A for any questions that arise. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Today's presentation, I'm going to go over the end of the Java plugin and kind of go a high level of what that means. What are our options in Niagara AX? What are our options in Niagara 4? And then using a third-party product like DG Lux Project Assist 2.0. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Java plugin. So many browsers currently do not support the Java plugin. Among them are Chrome and Microsoft's Edge browser. Firefox has announced that they will be removing support by the end of the year. We find that Internet Explorer does currently support the plugin, but all of this is really a moot point because Oracle is planning to deprecate the browser plugin in their next release, which is the Java Developer Kit 9, and that's actually coming out, I believe, in September. So starting in September, all new Java development will not include support for the applet in the browser. Because of this, we want to show you what options are available to keep using your Niagara the way you know and love it, maybe with some minor changes, but the idea being that everybody's going away from the browser plugin, so we need to have an option moving forward. The first thing we want to talk about is Niagara AX. If you have a release that is prior to the 3.8 update 1 release, which was recently released about a month or so ago, what you can do with that particular station is you still have the ability to use HX or mobile profiles because those do not use Java. They don't use the applet. So you can, instead of using the WB profile for a user, you can either use the HX profile or the mobile profile. You can actually force the mobile profile to be used in any browser, not just on a mobile phone or a tablet. Of course, with these, you do lose some of the abilities that you have in the full Java environment, such as some of the administrator level views like Wiresheet. But you can still provide your users with a rich environment without making many changes. Another option is to export that data to an Infor supervisor. Infor can seamlessly communicate with the latest versions of 3.6, 3.7, and 3.8. That means that even if you're not at 3.8 yet, you can still send your data up to an Infor supervisor as long as it's running the latest versions of those particular instances, and then host the graphics on an Infor supervisor. This allows you to, without having to completely upgrade your entire system, you can just upgrade your supervisor to Infor so that you can host your graphics there. The next thing to talk about is that 3.8 Update 1 build. One of the nice things that Tridium did add was support for Java Web Start. Web Start is actually a standalone application that is launched outside of the browser, so therefore it's not dependent on the plugin. It will maintain the rich environment that you're used to when connecting to Java through a browser with the applet. And the good news is that Oracle has included support for Web Start ever since version 5 of their software. So it's been in there a long time. Many folks just haven't been taking advantage of that because there hasn't been a need. But now Tridium definitely sees that need, and they're going to incorporate that. As before, just like with the versions prior to 3.8 U1, you can still use the HX and mobile profiles or export those graphics up to an Infor supervisor. I'm going to show here a screenshot of what it looks like when you are connecting through a browser with Niagara that is supporting Web Start. You'll notice that your login looks almost exactly the same with the addition of this line down here at the bottom that says to connect using Java Web Start, click here. When you click on that link, it will download a file to your PC wherever you typically store your downloads. And what that does is when you launch that executable, it will start Java Web Start for you with the connection specific to that station. If you're connecting to multiple stations, it will have to download an executable for each one of those stations because the information regarding all the connection information to that particular application are stored in that executable. So if you have 3 different stations, you're going to have 3 different executables. You can't edit one or use one to get from one to the other. So that is a limitation of Web Start, but it still provides you that rich environment if that's what's desired by the end customer. Next, let's talk about Niagara 4. So when Tridium designed Niagara 4, they were already designing it with the intention of getting away from the Java applet from day one. So Niagara 4 allows you to use an HTML5 HX profile. What this does is this presents all of the data through HTML5, no applet, and so of course no Java, which makes it really nice for your user. Of course, once again there you have a few limitations. There's no Wiresheet or some of those other admin level views that are possible with using the HTML5, but as we found, it's typically uncommon to provide that level of access to an end user. If you wanted to give that level of access, you'd probably give an end user a standalone copy of Workbench or Pro Builder anyway. Of course, one of the really nice things about Niagara 4 and AX is that, again, Tridium planned from the beginning to make it easy to migrate a station from 3.8 to Niagara 4. Using the migration tools within Niagara 4, you can take a 3.8 backup file and then convert it into Niagara 4. It also, as part of the process, will convert your PX graphics. The one thing you will have to do, though, is go into each user and make sure to change them to have that HTML5 HX profile. It doesn't do that by default, so you will have to change that profile for the user so that they do get that HTML5 profile. One thing we wanted to announce, this may have been announced already, but I wanted to include it because it is important. Currently, the Lynx Kit Control and Lynx Kit PX modules are Niagara 4 compatible. They're compatible with the migration tool as well, so the migration tool will not strip out any of those components as it will with a third-party module that is not currently Infor compatible.
And to that point, Chris, just to add, everybody will be receiving an announcement by the end of this week with a link to the Lynx Kit Control and Lynx Kit PX for Niagara 4.
Thank you, Mark. And on that note as well, I'll mention that we've already included those modules in the latest download of Niagara 4 from our resources website. So if you're downloading from there or from the link that marketing provides later in the week, you will have those latest ones. So once again, Niagara 4 provides you the option to get away from Java completely. And so this can, as I mentioned earlier, this can be used in cooperation with an AX site. You can feed data from a 3.6, 3.7, or 3.8 station up to an N4 supervisor and host your graphics there rather than having to upgrade every single one of the downstream Jennies. Next, I want to talk about DG Lux Project Assist 2.0. We've had a lot of interaction with this product in recent years, and from what we've seen, DG Logix has continued to make the product better and better. And Project Assist 2.0 is an extremely easy to use tool that we've even started using with some of our customers. So we can't recommend it enough as another option for your tool belt. This is different from the full DG Lux 5. It runs in that environment, but you don't have access to all of the DG Lux 5's tools, nor do you really need those unless you're doing some custom development. All of the tools that are used with Project Assist are done in a browser. It's all browser-based, so you connect to your station using a user with the DG Lux profile after that service has been added into your station, and you can go about creating your graphics. Very similar to the experience you're used to with creating PX graphics, obviously with some minor changes. But there is no training required. That's another great thing about this product. You don't have to go sit through a day or a week long training session. You can hit the ground running. Of course, if you have questions, that's what tech support's here for, to answer your questions. But this is another great tool. It creates a very rich environment. You can create custom dashboards, custom graphics. And just like you're used to in Niagara, you can still do the relativization of graphics within the DG Lux tool, so you can create one VAV graphic and apply it to all of your VAVs. So keeping that technology in there was key. This is, again, just a great option if your customers are looking for something a little more high-end or want something outside of the standard Niagara framework. The great thing, again, is that this is compatible with 3.8 and 4 Niagara 4. So if somebody's at 3.8 and doesn't want to upgrade to N4 at all, you can use Project Assist 2.0 with the 3.8 to get that rich environment for that customer. Not going to use WebStart, you're not going to use a browser with the HX graphics or mobile. You can use this. And the nice thing is with Project Assist 2.0, it is also compatible with a mobile device such as a phone or tablet without having to create multiple sets of graphics. So as we mentioned, this was going to be a shorter session today because we expected there to be some questions arising around the Java applet and what was going to happen. So please submit your questions. I'll turn it over to Mark, who's going to present any questions that's come in so far. Again, there are tools within the GoToWebinar sidebar. You can submit your questions through the question and answer section, or you can submit them through the chat function as well.
So great, Chris, thanks. So we've gotten a couple questions already, so I'm going to go ahead and read these. And in addition to Chris here today at LinkSpring, we have a couple other folks as well from our technical support team, the all-star team here at LinkSpring, and they're here to answer questions as well. Question is, when will the Lynx CD module be compatible?
That is something that our developers are currently working on. We'll take your feedback as well to them and let them know that that needs to be a priority. They've been prioritizing those modules. The big two obviously were Lynx Kit Control and Lynx Kit PX. I think they're also working on Lynx Report right now, but we'll take that feedback as well, letting them know that the Lynx LCD module is a priority as well, so that's one of the ones they're working on. I don't have a timeline for you at this moment, but after presenting that to development, we'll try to get an announcement about that module when we can.
Good. Another question is, bear with me one moment, everyone. A viewer has written in, let's see, I downloaded the update, but Java WebStart won't start. It hangs at downloading lexicon jar file. Any ideas?
Make sure, the first thing I would check is to make sure that the service, the WebStart service is enabled under the web service of that station. Beyond that, we'd probably have to look at it a little bit further, but I don't know if it comes enabled by default.
Okay, in case you couldn't hear that, Derek Mechie in our support department was commenting, so I'm going to repeat his answer. If you're having trouble with downloading, with WebStart not downloading, what you want to do is go under the web service in Niagara and make sure that WebStart is enabled. If you're continuing to have problems, please call our tech support line directly and they'll troubleshoot it with you. But that's a good question because it also follows into another question where somebody was asking, how do you enable Java WebStart on 3.8? That is actually under the web service within Niagara. A secondary question to that is, does the user have to download an exe each time he connects to the site? And the answer is no. Once you download the WebStart executable for that site once, just put that on your desktop and use that every single time. If you were to connect to a browser again, it would force you to download it, but you can use that same executable every time you want to connect to that particular site. There's a question on how do we get WebStart. Well, WebStart is already included in Java. So if you've downloaded the Java SDK to your to your computer, it's already there. And it's already built into the Java that's downloaded with Niagara. As I mentioned earlier, starting in version 5.0, Oracle included WebStart support, but it just was never taken advantage of because browsers always supported the plugin. So you don't have to download anything special or get anything special for WebStart. It's already included in the core Java files that are installed when you install Niagara, and all you have to do is enable WebStart under the web service and go from there. There's a question asking if there's a document on how to set it up. I don't think, oh, you do have one?
Well, there's actually a doc WebStart document in the docs directory.
Oh, thank you. Derek just informed me that if you go to your docs directory of your Niagara installation, there is a docwebstart.pdf that will go over that. So that's the best place to find your documentation. If you have any questions after looking at Doc WebStart, please call into tech support again. We're here to help.
This one question is kind of, I kind of like this one. Any gotchas for WebStart? Derek or Chris or both?
The only thing I've noticed is the look and feel. The only thing that I've noticed, this is Derek with tech support, is the look and feel might be slightly different than what you've seen, than what you might see in a browser in terms of just your colors or your tabs and things might be, instead of rounded edges, you might see square edges, but mostly it's just cosmetic. All the other functionality is there, so really we haven't encountered any gotchas, so to speak.
And I would also encourage any of the folks out there who have already started to use this, if you find any gotchas or find any helpful tips and things like that, to go ahead and send them into the support team at LinkSpring, and we don't mind taking that and sharing it along with the rest of the LinkSpring community as well, because I think that's important as more and more people become familiar and comfortable with using WebStart.
There's a question here, will Java WebStart work on a site with multiple JSONs? I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible as I can with this answer. The short answer is yes, absolutely, it'll work on a site with multiple JSONs. However, as I mentioned before, for each individual station that you connect to, it will download a unique executable for that station. So if you connect to JACE1, it's going to download an executable that will only connect to JACE1. You cannot never use that executable for JACE1 to connect to JACEs 2 and 3. What you'll have to do is connect to JACE1 and download the executable for JACE1, connect to JACE2 and download the executable for JACE2, connect to JACE3 and download the executable for JACE3. Again, that's only an issue if you're hosting graphics on each individual JACE. If you're hosting all of the graphics on one single JACE or at a supervisor level, then you would only need to download the one executable for the one station where all the graphics are hosted. So that's the only caveat there, is that if you're connecting to multiple sites or multiple stations, you will need an executable for each individual station.
And again, sort of a question that came in off of chat, as far as WebStart and JACE's, it'll work with the 6 series, 7 series, and obviously the new 8000 series. Yes?
Yes, Mark, and that'll also be in that document that we include with the deck at the for you to download. Technically, a JACE2 or a Genie PC 1000 can run Niagara 3.8. The experiences that we've had in tech support as well as from customer feedback is that we do not recommend running 3.8, just given the large amount of overhead that's required for that build on the limited hardware of the JACE2. We find that it doesn't perform up to the expectations of the customer. So again, while you can run it on a 2, we recommend against it because you're going to have little size on the disk for your station, as well as you're going to see decreased performance from that. So you can, but we don't recommend running that on a 2.
Okay. We've got about another minute or so, so if any folks have any additional questions, we've addressed all the questions that have come in thus far. A couple things, well, in case a last minute one does come in. Next month, we've got 2 webinars that we're planning for next month. We're going to give everybody a bonus one. We're going to have our regular 30 minutes with LinkSpring, which will be August the 17th, Wednesday, always the 3rd Wednesday of the month. And on August 2nd, and we'll be sending out information about this here coming up, is we're going to have a special webinar presentation on lighting control. It's going to be presented by Douglas Lighting. As many of us know, lighting is something that we're up against each and every day. It's becoming another beachhead, if you will, for the next generation of buildings, and building operators and facility managers are starting to take a look at lighting and lighting control specifically. So that's going to be occurring on August 2nd at 12 o'clock as well, and it most likely will be a little bit longer than our standard 30 minutes with LinkSpring. So those are the couple of the housekeeping items, and we've got another question here that has just come in. Chris?
Yeah, this is a good question, so I wanted to make sure we didn't miss this one. The question is, what are the implications of wanting to use Java Workbench? As you're all aware, that also goes by the name Workbench in a browser. So again, that relies on the applet to get that full rich environment, and since the applet's going away, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, WebStart does allow you to have all of that functionality, such as Wiresheet and everything. So, yes, so using Java Workbench or Workbench in a browser will work with WebStart. So WebStart gives you all of the functionality in the applet just as a standalone application. Yeah. Yeah. So you're not relying on a browser, you're running that application outside of it. So at the end of the day, as Derek mentioned, you might see some cosmetic changes, but anything that you can currently do with Java Workbench, you should be able to do in the WebStart application. And if you come across anything that doesn't work, let us know, and we'll run that up the tree to Tritium.
All right, well, I think for the most part, I don't see any other questions that have come in. Just we're going to go ahead and wind this down. Just remember, if you've got additional questions or comments on 30 Minutes with LinkSpring, please email marketing@linkspring.com. And then on the technical side, of course, to reach our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame technical support team, reach them at support@linkspring.com. So again, thanks everybody for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month.